Hey guys, Pro1701 here, and today we're going to be reviewing Planet of Evil with the 4th Doctor, Tom Baker. I absolutely love Planet of Evil, and I very much enjoyed this rewatch of it. It's from Season 13, and I do think Season 13 is objectively probably the best season the show has ever had. So many masterpieces in this season. And probably my second favorite season, personally, after Season 12, because I love Season 12 a lot. Let me start off by saying the jungle set is immaculately designed. It is amazing. That is a marvel of design. I love watching the behind the scenes when they talked about how they had to rejuggle the schedule for the season so they could get more filming days at Ealing Studios so they could build this massive set. I really love the making of for a lot of the stories, and it was really fascinating for Planet of Evil. Learning kind of all the different things that went into the story, but especially the set design. Because I love this set. It looks phenomenal. And the fact they shot it on film. I love how there's even water in it. You see Sarah Jane running through water early in the story. The set is just... I can understand why they took so many pictures of it and used it in set design classes. Use those pictures because it's one of the strong points of the story. You can tell that, like... I know the Williams era, especially like in season 15, they got hit by inflation really bad. It's one of the reasons why the Williams era suffers from, well, just shoddy design because they had no money. You can tell that hadn't quite hit here. Because even the other sets look good. The spaceship design looks really good. For the sets, I really enjoy the sets for the spaceships. I love that they're done on multiple levels, you know, to kind of keep it off that studio floor. I love that there's stairwells and different levels. There's a lot of places where you have 2 or 3 floors, which I really like. It really just adds depth and gives the illusion of more space when you see people going up and down stairs, standing up here. It also really gives you a lot more you can do camera-wise with different angles. You can have a kind of low shot looking up or a shot from up high looking down. It does a lot of really good there with the level. So I think the spaceship design is also really good. And the good set designs also really help make this story. Also, Tom Baker is on fire like he usually is. I love that scene when he's talking about, well, we didn't notice it on our receptors. Well, maybe my receptors are better than yours. And then somebody says something, he's like, my manners certainly are. It's a very Tom Baker thing to say. And then there's several scenes in this when Tom Baker's kind of, in like long shots, you kind of see him staring off into the distance, like he sees something 100 miles away that nobody else can see. And to me, it's like he's contemplating. He's thinking about the situation, so he's kind of staring off like he's zoned out slightly, but you know he's also paying attention to everything that's being said around him, but he's working stuff out in his head. You can see the wheels turning. He does have that kind of stare you'll see, this very inhuman stare that Tom Baker is so good at doing, because this doctor is very alien, and you just see him sitting there, you know, just kind of like he's just analyzing everything that's going on, you know, kind of like Eccleston does when he's, you know, narrows it down, a lot like that, like he's narrowing everything down in his head. Elizabeth Sladen is really good in this. I really enjoy that she kind of has that sensitive psychicness to pick up on the creature. She can kind of sense when it's around. I really like that. And I just really always enjoy Sarah Jane and Elizabeth, so she's really good in this. The ship design, set design, the smaller ship, the little pod, is a little sparse, but still really good. It serves its purpose of just being a little laboratory. The guy who plays the professor, was it Sorensen? Is that right? I have a lot of trouble remembering people's names in reviews when I'm doing reviews. I like the actor who plays Sorensen, because I think he does a good job at coming across that he's this very intelligent scientist, even if he does kind of have a tunnel vision on his goal. And then the stress of the situation and the stress of what's happening to him, you know, when you see him over there just kind of, you know, it's the stress of what he's physically going through, and then the stress of just the situation of him trying to go through all this trouble, years of his work, years of his life, trying to save his planet and his people from the problems with their son, just bearing down on him. I really liked the actor and thought he did a really good job playing the character. Don't really care for the uniforms that the military people wear. Those kind of uniforms they wear, I don't really like those. They're fine, but I don't really care for them. The guy who plays the main controller, I think that's what they call him, the controller, I don't buy him as like the leader, the captain, so to speak. I don't buy him as the leader of a military unit. Maybe it's the kind of very 70s hairstyle he uses. Maybe it's just his attitude, because he seems a very two-dimensional character. I don't buy him as the leader. For me, the older guy, the one that does take charge, I like him. He really sells me as a good commander, a good controller, and I'm sitting there the whole time like, why isn't this guy in charge? Even before that guy takes charge, I'm sitting here like, why isn't this guy in charge? Which, I mean, I've seen the story before, and I remembered he took charge at some point, but I'm always like, why isn't this guy in charge? He's older, he's got more experience, kind of the Obi-Wan Kenobi here. And I like the actor playing him. I think he does a really good job. They do a pretty good job of getting across that there is a lot of people on this ship without us ever seeing a lot of people because, classic Who, budget, extras. But they do a pretty good job when they're talking to people on the communicator a lot of times of getting across there's more people on the ship. And even at the very end of the story, after everything's resolved, you see a couple other people standing on the bridge that weren't there earlier to let us know more, like security people came from other areas. So you do get the impression that this is a very packed ship, or at least it's got a pretty full crew, more so than you might think otherwise. The way that the creatures kill people is pretty neat, how it drains them and how their bodies disappear and then reappear as basically husk. That's a pretty neat effect. The husk are pretty good makeup design. I was impressed with it. It's impressively gruesome. It's probably a terrible way to die when you see them just disappearing before they reappear as the husk. That's pretty neat. I think that comes across pretty well, especially considering all the restrictions that the show had to deal with on the air. I think that's done to really good effect. I love the creature design with the red outline. I mean, I know it's pretty much the id creature for Forbidden Planet. I'm aware of that. I've never actually watched Forbidden Planet, but I am aware that that's very much lifted from the id creature from Forbidden Planet. But I think it pulls it off really well, especially on Classic Who's budget. I think it's a really neat effect that holds up pretty well today, of just that red outline of the creature walking around. That's really neat. I was really impressed with it. I like the pit, the little pit that the people can fall into and the creature can rise out of, because it looks interesting. I don't know how they managed to pull that off without CGI, the look of it, because it looks like it has a blackness to it that's so opaque. It's one of that theory about if the longer you stare into the abyss, eventually the abyss is going to stare back into you. You really see that, like it's black without being reflective. It's black. That's a really neat effect. I remember they talked about it in the behind the scenes a lot, but I don't really get how they pulled it off. But it still looked like a really neat effect, again, for Classic Who. And I really like that episode 2 cliffhanger when Tom starts to fall into it and it does that freeze frame of him falling. I thought that was a really good cliffhanger. Everything going on the Professor is really cool. Seeing him, as he's trying to fight what's happening to him and it's not really working. And I love how he tries to do the right thing in episode 4 by launching himself into space out of the little ejection pod. And he tries and he just can't quite maintain control long enough to pull it off, but I give him credit for at least trying. The makeup used on him when he transformed, to me, it's not enough. He just kind of looks like a caveman. It doesn't quite work for me. I mean, it's fine, but I do wish it had been a little more of an inhuman transformation, a little more halfway between him and the id creature. I think would have worked better. But it's fine for what it is. I like that the Professor survived. I know in the way Bob Holmes was going to do it originally, he was supposed to just fall in the pit and not come out, and how Philip was like, no, we need a happier ending for him than that. And I like that. I like the fact that the Doctor was able to save Sorensen. And I love how Tom Baker even subtly gives him the idea of an alternative energy source of the kinetic movement of planets. And he makes it seem like it was the Professor's idea. No, Professor, you'd abandoned that research. You'd moved on to the kinetic movement between planets, Oh, yes, I am a genius, yes. And now the Professor, again, he's just like, oh, yeah, I thought of that, I'm a genius. And I just love how Tom just kind of slips it into the conversation. So he still does, the Doctor still manages to save that race and that people just by nudging the Professor in the right direction at what to look for, because he knows the Professor can figure it out. I enjoy that. I love just how subtle he does it. It's very Tom Baker, and I absolutely adore it. I do love Planet of Evil. It has this atmosphere to it that's really good. Again, a lot of that's down to the set design, especially that jungle set design. I am so in love with that jungle design. But the spaceship design, I like the multi-level stuff on it. I think that's done really well. I think it's a really tight script. I think the actors, for the most part, are doing a really good job with it. I think the creature is really well realized. I like I like how Philip Hinchcliffe put it in the making of documentary, that he was, instead of giving us just one monster, he gave us like, monstrous things in different qualities, like slicing up a monster and doing it in different bits. Like, you have the id creature as part of the monster. You have what's going on with Sorensen as another part, and then even the planet itself, as he points out, and kind of spacing out the monstrous element of it. And apparently him and Bob like to do that a lot in stories, kind of space it out instead of having just one solid evil creature. And Philip Hinchcliffe and just Bob Holmes are such a masterpiece together, much like Barry Letts and Terrence Dicks. They were just made for each other to work together for Doctor Who. Planet of Evil, I think, is a little underrated. Its biggest problem is just it is in the season full of masterpieces. And I think it stands right there toe-to-toe with most of them. I'll rank it right up there with Seeds of Doom, Pyramids of Mars, Terror of the Zygons, and Brain of Morbius. Matter of fact, I even rank it slightly higher than Zygons. If I was ranking them, Season 13 is very telling to me when even its weakest story, which I think is Android Invasion, is still very good. As I've talked about before, my last rewatch of Android Invasion, I really came to appreciate it. It's a very good story. And that's the weakest of the season, in my opinion. I would rank it like Android Invasion, and then Terror of the Zygons, which is right below masterpiece level for me. I love Terror of the Zygons. And then probably Planet of Evil, and then and then Brain of Morbius, Pyramids of Mars, Seeds of Doom. But it's just a phenomenal season. This is the season of masterpieces. And I think if Planet of Evil had been in a different season, it would probably be talked about more. I mean, I don't know anybody that talks bad about it. I never hear people say Planet of Evil's bad. Most people admit it's a very well done story. So it's a very good story, and it's a very well realized story. It is. The direction, I mean, it's a David Maloney film. I love me some David Maloney. He was an amazing Doctor Who director. Since he was an actor himself, I love the fact he would be down on the floor with the actors, not just up in the room watching everything. I really do think though that it stands tall right next to the other stories in that season. It fits right in. It's definitely that horror gothic feel that Hinchcliffe and Bob Holmes did so well together, especially in season 13 and 14. So I love Planet of Evil. Let me know what you think of Planet of Evil. Not necessarily in relation with the rest of season 13, but just as its own thing. What do you think of Planet of Evil? Because it is pretty amazing. It's just, again, when it's stuck in a season full of so many classics that I sometimes feel like it gets lost in the shuffle, and it shouldn't, because it's absolutely amazing. So let me know what you think. I always enjoy hearing from you guys. Other things to do: click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the bell for notifications so you never miss out on another video. I also have a Patreon. If you like what I do and would like to support what I do, there is a link to that down in the description below. Check that out. My entry level tier is only $2 a month. Most importantly though, thank you for watching.